This is the fourth gate of Kammasaka Zen, known as monastery ritual. This is Dharma talk number 5. And it's about the fourth ox-herding picture, known as catching the ox. So this fourth gate, monastery ritual, in the tradition of Zen teachings, the 10 ox-herding pictures I've taught before, each stage of the journey towards enlightenment is illustrated through a metaphor of a herder seeking and finding and eventually taming the ox. The ox represents the mind, and the herder symbolizes the practitioner on their spiritual path. These stages progressively guide one through the process of realization, leading to liberation. And the fourth ox-herding picture, catching the ox, correlates with the fourth gate of Kammasaka Zen. Both of these metaphors reflect the dynamic tension of encountering and integrating simply the deeper truths of our existence. So, before delving into the fourth picture, I think it's essential to understand the broader framework of the 10 ox-herding pictures. Each of the 10 stages encapsulates a fundamental aspect of the journey towards enlightened awareness. From the initial search for the ox, which emphasizes the search for truth, to the final stage of transcending the need for the ox, transcending it altogether. These images simply reflect the stages of taming the mind, dispelling the delusions, and realizing the true nature of reality. So the fourth ox-herding picture, catching the ox. In the fourth ox-herding picture, we see the herder struggling with the ox, attempting to catch it. And the ox represents the mind, or the ego, which has been conditioned by habitual patterns. It's been conditioned by desires and our delusions. And it's at this stage the ox has been seen, but it remains untamed and wild. The practitioner recognizes the truth, but he or she must now wrestle with the powerful force of attachment, the force of ignorance, and the ego that resists the change. And this stage represents a critical juncture in spiritual practice. It's not enough to merely recognize the nature of mind. One must actively engage with it, struggle with it, and begin the process of taming and integrating it. In Zen, this is often where the real work begins, as it requires confronting deep-rooted habits and beliefs that tend to keep us as practitioners bound to suffering and ignorance. So the herder struggles with the ox. It is a metaphor for the practitioner's inner struggle to simply break free from the patterns of the conditioned mind. And these patterns include things such as desires, attachments, fears, and delusions that have been built up over a lifetime. So at this stage, the practitioner may experience moments of clarity and insight, but these are often fleeting, as the powerful forces of the ego pull them back into their old ways of thinking and their old ways of behaving. So the struggle in the fourth picture, it's not just a matter of intellectual understanding. It requires deep embodied practice. And once again, meditation, mindfulness, and other forms of spiritual discipline are necessary to help weaken the grip of the ego and to allow us as practitioners to begin to tame the mind. But it is a difficult and often painful process, as it involves confronting parts of oneself that we have probably been ignoring or repressing all our lives. However, it is an essential step towards liberation. Wrestling with the ego, Kamasaka Monastery and ashram teachings are deeply rooted in the tradition of Zen. Yet they have also been shaped by unique practices and insights that have simply emerged over time. And the fourth gate is a symbolic threshold that resonates deeply within the fourth ox herding picture. Now, while the ox herding picture's metaphor speaks of taming the mind, the fourth gate reflects the practitioner's encounter with the ego and the work of self-transcendence. As the abbot at Kamasaka, I've observed that many practitioners reach a point in their journey where they must confront their own ego head-on. In the early stages of practice, the ego may not seem like such an overwhelming obstacle. There are moments of peace, there are moments of insight, and even maybe moments of bliss as the mind begins to quiet and the practitioner experiences moments of clarity. However, as one progresses, the deeper layers of egoic attachment and delusion begin to emerge. So the fourth gate represents the moment when the practitioner comes face to face with their own ego. They come face to face with their own ego in a way that is unavoidable. And this is the point where the practitioner must wrestle with the ego's grip on their thoughts, on their emotions, and on their behaviours. It's like the herder struggling with the ox. The practitioner must learn to catch and confront these aspects of themselves that have been conditioned over years of habitual patterns and desires. So here at Kamosaka, we speak of the fourth gate as the threshold of integration. It's not enough to simply recognize the ego's presence. One must begin the work of integrating this understanding into everyday aspect of our lives. But this involves a deep level of mindfulness and self-awareness. And it requires the practitioner to continually bring attention to the ways in which the ego manifests itself in daily interactions. In such moments of anger, jealousy, fear, and desire. And one of the central teachings at this stage is the importance of humility. As the practitioner confronts the ego, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that one has achieved a certain level of mastery or even enlightenment. This is in fact another trick of the ego. True progress at the fourth gate requires a deep sense of humility and recognition that the work of self-transcendence is ongoing. There is no final catching of the ego, only a continual process of awareness and integration. It's at this stage that many practitioners also experience moments of profound frustration. They may feel as though they have made progress, only to find themselves caught in the same patterns of thought and behaviour. And this frustration is an essential part of the process, as it forces the practitioner to dig deeper, to examine the subtle ways in which the ego operates. And then they need to recommit to their practice. The struggle of catching the ox and the struggle of passing the fourth gate. Both the picture and the gate highlight the dynamic tension of spiritual practice in this particular stage. It's a time of struggle, but it's also a time of great potential. In Zen, this struggle is seen not as something to be avoided or overcome, but it's seen as an essential part of the process. An essential part of the process of awakening. So the ox must be caught. The ego must be confronted. But this is only the beginning of the journey. As practitioners, we must learn to approach this struggle with a sense of curiosity and openness, rather than resisting or avoiding, particularly the difficult aspects of practice. We must learn to embrace them as opportunities for growth and transformation. So in Zen we have a saying, the obstacle is the path. This is particularly true at the fourth stage of practice, where the very things that seem to block progress are in fact the keys to deeper understanding. Deeper understanding and liberation. So Kammasaka emphasises the importance of community support, particularly at this stage of practice. While the work of catching the ox and passing through the fourth gate is ultimately a personal journey, it is also one that benefits greatly from the support of the Sangha, or the spiritual community. So practitioners are encouraged to share their experiences, to support another in their struggles, and to simply remind each other that the path is one of continual growth and discovery. So, to conclude, to round it up, the fourth ox herding picture and the fourth gate of Kammasaka Zen both represent pivotal moments on the spiritual path. They reflect the struggle to catch the mind, to confront the ego, and to begin the work of integration and self-transcendence. And it's at this stage the practitioner is called to move beyond intellectual understanding and to engage deeply in the process of simply taming the mind and integrating this understanding into everyday aspects of our lives. So ultimately, the work of catching the ox and going through the fourth gate is about simply about learning to live in harmony with the mind rather than being controlled by it. It's a process of gradually untangling the knots of delusion and attachment, and coming to rest in the deeper truth of one's own nature. But in Zen, this is not the final destination, but an ongoing process of awakening that unfolds throughout one's entire life. Thank you for listening today. I hope this has been of benefit.